Hello guys and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me Vulcan. Today I have for you game 1 in a best of 3 between a.Lennart and Gnef, and this has been a long time coming. We were stuck on the quarterfinals for a very long time, but Lennart actually ended up getting a bye versus YPPY after the quarterfinal was not played for a very long time. So we've moved on to the semi-finals, and yeah, Lennart's found his way here. Gnef also, after previously defeating Rust in round 1, he defeated Chicken Jew in round 2, and Gnef defeated Thrace in round 3. So Gnef well-earned place in the semi-finals. Lennart also with his defeat against Hortland, against Katie Laker, and then we saw the bye versus YPPY, which is unfortunate because YPPY actually defeated Fusel in the second round. So that was definitely set to be an awesome matchup, but didn't end up coming through. But let's focus on today's game. We have Sainte-Mère-Église, and we have a.Lennart picking up the 101st Airborne versus Gnef's 9th Panzer. And this is a matchup that I would say generally falls in favour of the 9th Panzer, due to the 101st relying mostly on their infantry. However, if the 101st can find a way to kill off things like the Panzer II Lux and the Befehl Panzer II-C and the Panzer I-Cs with AT, like M1 guns and M3 guns, then that could definitely put the 9th Panzer in an awkward position in Phase A, because they won't have the infantry themselves to contest areas like Sainte-Mère-Église in the middle here, where I'm expecting the 101st player to really win out. And then I'm expecting Gnef to maybe try and circumnavigate the town and find ground elsewhere, because trying to go up against airborne engineers and airborne rifles with Panzer Grenadiers, or even in this case Sturm Pioneers, is not really going to work out very well. I find it very interesting that Gnef is even trying to invest in Sturm Pioneers to try and contest this, because I don't think that's the necessarily the right way to do it. There is a Befehl Panzer II-C and a Panzer I-C moving into the middle town as well with the 258. But you've got to remember that, again, airborne rifles, they do have bazookas, and they can be pretty deadly with those. And with the close quarters combat that you're going to be going into, it's very likely that those bazookas will find a way to get on target. So I'm very worried about this start from Gnef. On this top side, we have the Panzergrens here. 2 Panzergrens with a 258, and relying on these 258 seems a bit strange to me. On the bottom side, same deal. This time with a Speedtroop Panzergren there. Looks like he's changed out the 258 for a Panzer II Lux, and I'm a lot more comfortable with that start. Because these 258s, they cost 45 points, and they put out pretty much the same HE as a Panzer II Lux. Pretty much exactly the same HE as a Panzer II Lux. Obviously at longer range, but a Panzer II Lux, costs 10 points more, and you get the 5 front armor, and it's also a 20mm autocannon, which can really put on a lot of pressure to infantry early in the game. They do a lot more damage quickly compared to the 258s, which take time to reload. They're a bit unwieldy because they are self-propelled. They don't have like a turret, so they don't turn as quickly or aim as quickly, and that's all sort of adds up. And I've really not fallen out of love with the 258s. But let's have a look at Lennart's units. We have a couple units of airborne engineers, airborne rifles, and a unit of command heading to the center town, which is probably going to be more than enough to hold it for Lennart at least. Then on the top side, we have command, airborne rifles. We have a 50 cal in there by the looks of things. Also the Pathfinders and an AT gun. Be interesting to see whether or not that is an M3 gun or an M1 gun. Same deal on the bottom side by the looks of things. Command going to be accompanying some airborne engineers. We've got the Pathfinder, 50 cal, and the AT gun in there. Once the game starts, we will see exactly what those AT guns are, and that will give us a good idea of whether or not Lennart's going to be able to deal with the Panzer II Lux combos that will likely come out of Gnef. But we are off. Let's have a look actually at these AT guns. So that is an M1 gun, and this is an M3 gun. So M3 gun on the top side and one gun on the bottom side. The M1 gun should be more than enough to deal with the Panzer II Lux at range. It's just whether or not the Panzer II Lux can get close enough to annihilate the M1 gun in a short amount of time. But that generally requires more than one Panzer II Lux to do that, because you normally require like more than 120mm on target to kill an AT gun quick enough for it not to fire like a second shot, for example. But anyway, into this town Gnef goes. Going to try and get his Sturm Pioneers into a decent position. Currently getting quite a lot of his units on target there briefly to the Airborne Engineers, but Lennart's going to be trying to use return fire to get as close as he can to the infantry of Gnef. And here we go. Engagement between the Sturm Pioneers and the Engineers. The Engineers absolutely annihilated the Sturm Pioneers, and that is what I was worried about. The Sturm Pioneers just don't have the strength in numbers to fight up against the Airborne Engineers. Like 11 health squad, 11 strength squad versus the Sturm Pioneers 6 strength. It's just nothing. And yeah, the Panzer 1C and the Panzer 2C here can deal with the Airborne Engineers, but they can't deal with an Airborne Rifle squad. It's only a matter of time until that Airborne Rifle squad finds a Zuka shot onto any of these units, really. On the bottom side, Panzergrenadiers have moved up. Speed Troop are there as well. Let's see what Gnef spots here. You can see the Airborne Engineers moving into that tree line. He's got the Panzergrenadiers moving up there to challenge those. It looks like he's going to try and run down the Airborne Engineers with the Panzer II Lux and 251. Good idea, since the Airborne Engineer doesn't really have anything to deal with the Panzer II Lux. On this top side though, 50 cal has opened up onto the Panzergrenadiers, and actually going to pin them down pretty damn quick there. These Panzergrenadiers now opening up onto the Airborne Rifles, but at that range the Airborne Rifles do have a decent advantage. Panzergrenadiers did find themselves pinned down very quickly. 251 has gone around the corner and got itself hit in the face by the M1 gun. Panzer II Lux going to be trying to open up onto that. Gets the driver wounded though. 20mm still on target. Oh, if that 20mm can get the kill, then it would have been curtains for Llennart, but it's turned out the other way round, with Gnef's Panzergrenadiers getting caught behind enemy lines, going to continue to fall back there, and this 251's in a bad spot as well. 258 has tried to move into line of sight of the M1 gun, gets forced to fall back with one shot. Not going to be working out. 50 cal's also doing a lot of damage to the 258 there. Mortar fire coming in now for the 251 too. That's going to be Gnef's choice of unit to try and get rid of the M1 gun, but what we got to look at is the 56% territory lead here for Llennart, quickly brought back by the Panzergrenadiers as they recover. But if this half track doesn't find the kill onto the M1 gun, that's going to make things very difficult for Gnef on the bottom side. But Airborne Engineers dying on the bottom side, Panzer 1C and the Panzer 2C there with the half track just absolutely annihilating that squad. Sturm Pioneers trying to jump forwards, but honestly I just feel like these Sturm Pioneers are going to die. Now these Airborne Engineers were displaced from the building, which has left them in a pretty sticky spot. So pretty effective attack there from the Sturm Pioneers onto those Airborne Engineers. But yeah, definitely took a lot of damage in the process, and these Airborne Rifles are waiting to get a shot onto the Panzer 1C or the Panzer 2C, and we can see that happening there. That's going to force Gnef to sort of fall back from that position, otherwise another bazooka is just going to constantly come out of that building. Every time they're reloaded, Lennart's just going to jump back in and fire another Zuka, taking out that half track. He's bailed out the Panzer 2C. It's only a matter of time until he kills off the Panzer 1C as well. Just finishes off the kill onto the befelled Panzer 2C to get rid of the command. That's a pretty solid shout. New Panzer II Lux has arrived on this bottom side. Going to try and help out with the Airborne Rifles there, since they are going hard onto the Spear Troop. We'll be able to do quite a bit of damage in the open, which is nice, thanks to the MG and the 20mm getting on target there. Panzer 1C also coming down. That should help out a lot. Panzer II Lux looking for the kill onto the Airborne Engineer. Is reversing into line of sight of the M1 gun though. That M1 gun finding a kill onto the Panzer 1C in the mid. That's crazy. Okay, so it doesn't actually look like the Panzer II Lux had line of sight onto the M1 gun initially. Doesn't want to remain in line of sight though, even after he was doing quite a bit of damage to that M1 gun. So that this M1 gun's done a lot of work. And like I was saying at the start, It's really dependent, this matchup, on whether or not the 101st can find a way to deal with the Panzer II Lux and Panzer I-Cs that Gnef's going to be putting up against him. And so far he has. This M1 gun's killed more than its fair share of tanks right now. And this airborne rifles in the town took advantage of all of Gnef's units getting that little bit too close for comfort. Airborne engineers here cleaning up the Sturm Pioneers due to their superior strength. And on the top side, things aren't going very well as well, with this M3 gun cleaning up units up here. We see the 258 dying there, and that removes a lot of the support that Gnef needs on that top side to make any ground. So the tracks and wheels are damaged on this Panzer II Lux, but he is starting to make some ground on this bottom side. M22 Locust is on the way. P51 Mustang going to be trying to bomb out the 258. Didn't find the kill. Flampanzer now coming into the town. That's going to be looking for some shots onto the airborne engineers here. But it's going to end up running straight into these airborne rifles, and the airborne rifles pick up the kill with one shot. So Flampanzer going to be finding itself the line of sight onto these airborne engineers. Going to be killing them off very easily indeed, I feel. Mortar fire currently coming down onto those airborne rifles. But on this bottom side, M3 gun arriving has done a lot of damage to the Panzer I-C and the Panzer II Lux. Panzer I got bailed out. Panzer II Lux forced to fall back. This M22 not needed in the bottom side anymore is going to go to the town, in fact, to try and help out with the Flampanzer. So far, Lennart doing a fantastic job of sort of containing the Panzer pushes coming out of Gnef. And Gnef losing out quite heavily so far. SDKFZ has joined the party and will hopefully provide Gnef with some cover onto the infantry that Lennart's pushing forwards. But with the M22 arriving in the town, if there's nothing here with any AP value to stop that, the M22 could run rampant amongst the Flampanzer 251-1, take out the mortar there, could even take out this SDKFZ 7-1. Panzer II Lux is arriving though, just on time. 258 and the half-track here going to be opening up onto this M3 gun. M3 gun did fail to get the kill onto the 258, which is a pretty big deal. Going to try and fall back away from that engagement if he can, and just manages to get out in time. This M3 gun, because it's such a small AT gun, they can run away with it very quickly. It has a pretty high speed. You can see it there just running through the orchard away from that engagement, and that could cause problems for Gnef in the future. It's always those AT guns that get away that really bite you later on. So the Panzer II Lux here opening up onto the airborne rifles, revealing itself once again though to the M3 gun, and boom goes the Panzer II Lux. Gnef unfortunately losing that now. This 251-2 gonna be used to try and kill off the M3 gun, but it's been generally inaccurate through the game so far. Considering that's a 2-star 251-2, I'm surprised like none of those shells really landed anywhere near the M3 gun. And I don't know if that's a fire position error from Gnef, or whether or not this 251-2 is just incredibly inaccurate. But on the top side, the Panzergren is going to go down there. M22 Locust has arrived, which is going to force back the 258 and the 251. Panzer I-C might be able to deal with the M22 at close range, but at this range currently, I think the M22 has a pretty big advantage. That's going to be moving up. Is it going to find the kill onto the Panzer I-C? I'm not entirely sure. It's got plenty of time on target. It's going to take out the 258 first. Panzer I-C only has 600 meter range, so it's going to have to move forwards to even start tackling the M22. Gnef can see the M22 on that top side. Lennart can see the Panzer I, so there you have it. Well, after 9 minutes and 51 seconds, Gnef is going to surrender. And 675 kills to 195 losses for Lennart. Vice versa for Gnef. I'm honestly quite surprised that Gnef gave up that game so quickly, just because if you continue to use the Panzer II looks throughout that game, there isn't too much that the 101st can do about it, especially moving into like B and C, like the overwhelming Panzer IVJs. There is nothing that like the AT or tanks from 101st can do about that. They have to rely on their infantry and their bazookas, and they have to rely on their air force. And I feel like, you know, moving into the later game, Gnef could have maybe done some more damage and brought things back, but in the center we do see that the airborne rifles there did end up killing off the SDKF Z71. Both the Flampanzers went down. The Befehl Panzer II-C there was one of the first to go down to that bazooka. And then we saw the M1 gun pick up the Panzer II looks and the Panzer I-C on the bottom side, and this M3 gun cleaning up things in the top side. So yeah, I don't know. Lennart managed to find a way to clean up a lot of the panzers, and that basically left Gnef in a position where he felt he couldn't come back in the game, and that's fair enough. You know, it was looking pretty dire for Gnef, but after 10 minutes, I don't know, I feel like you can hold on for a little bit longer than that and maybe bring it back in the late game. Either way, that's game 1 over. And we'll move on to game 2 of the best of 3 between Gnef and Lennart to see who moves on to the final, all to play for. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.